Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm back, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than what I usually put on the channel. It's not video game related, it's actually going to be a movie review of the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Far From Home. Saw it this Thursday, so 2 days ago, and pretty much right now I'm in the middle of working on a new video that's related to games, but it's been taking me a little bit of time to get it done. So I'm like, let me get you something, just to put something out there to kind of you can watch in between this big time gap. But big fan of Marvel, always have been. I've kept up with the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe since like the first Iron Man, so I've seen really just about every movie. So there really isn't anything I don't know so far that's going on in the series. But yeah, well, I like to say, while I work on that, I'm gonna do a quick impromptu review of this movie, tell you what I thought about it, and go over why I really liked it at the end. Honestly, I'd probably say this is one of the best, if not the best, Spider-Man movie that they've ever made. Even with like the first trilogy or like the second one that they didn't make a third one for, but out of all the three series they made into movies, I'd say this is probably the best one. But you know what? Heads up, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I recommend going to see it before you watch this. And if you haven't and you don't really care, you're just trying to get like an idea of what people think about it, then feel free to stay along for the ride. But hey, without further ado, let's get into it. Well, actually, let me back up really quick. One thing I really do like about the way Marvel's been doing their trailers, or like the trailers to any movie they have right now, including how they did Endgame, is they are really good at just showing you enough to give you an idea about what's going to be happening in the movie without giving away the entire plot. That's why I really like these movies, how they're doing them right now, because they never tell you too much, and there was a lot of things that really surprised me in the movie too, so that could probably lend to why I liked it so much. But yeah, let's get back on track. So number one, the story. Really, well, it basically starts off with Nick Fury and his assistant going to some kind of deserted area. I forget if it was Mexico or some other place, but it was some city, and it was pretty much looked like a hurricane and went through it. It was barren, no people were there. So he went to check it out. When they get there, they're kind of looking around. A little banter goes back and forth to kind of figure out, like, was this a monster? Was it a person? Was it a like natural disaster? And that's when abruptly there's basically a big, what you call, sand monster, rock monster comes out of the ground, and it's about to attack them before we get the first introduction to the character that's going to be more prevalent later in the movie, Mysterio. So he pops in, kind of blocks off what's going on, what's about to happen, and then we cut to modern day, what's going on in Peter Parker's life. So we jump over to the school, and just to kind of get only the important parts, we get a quick video that shows this is taking place after Endgame. All the characters from there died. They do a quick recap of what happened there. Talk about the what they call the blip. So there is actually a name for what had happened during Infinity War, where half the planet basically disappeared. They call it the blip. And essentially it shows, like, in the universe, 5 years passed. The people who didn't disappear aged 5 years, and the people who came back are still the same age. Doesn't play too much of a big role, but, it's still something that's relevant now. Like, that's a part of their life. So there's that. So we see how all that kind of ties into the new series. The plot of the movie now is there's a class trip that's being planned. And it doesn't really, pop off until Nick Fury tries to contact Peter Parker. Peter Parker is really kind of trying to stay away from being a hero now. He's like, let me just, do my own thing. He doesn't feel like he's ready to take the mantle of, what Iron Man left behind. The trip's about to happen. Peter is trying to get a good situation going between him and MJ on the trip, so that, he can kind of confess his love to her, give her a gift. So that's what he wants. That's like his subplot. He's like, okay, I want to do something with Mary Jane, or I guess Michelle in this case, but MJ. And Nick Fury is trying to get, Peter to become Spider-Man so he can help out with this new disaster that's going on. So they go on a trip to Venice. And then while on that trip, they're attacked by one of the monsters again. At this time, it's like a water monster. Mysterio comes in. Peter, he like buys a gift from MJ. Mysterio comes in. He helps out. and stops everything. And then that's when Nick Fury is able to contact Peter and get, tell him what's going on. And here's where we start getting into like what the plot really is. The whole trip is kind of like it was a disguise. It was like a trick by Nick Fury to get Spider-Man to help out with this big new ordeal. So he's actually the guy talking to the teachers about getting them sent over to Europe, so that Peter can actually help out with what's going on. We meet Mysterio. He was the one. He actually was able to stop the monster, and his story is that he basically is from a different dimension, and that there are 4 beasts called the Elementals that destroyed his world, and now they've come over to destroy this our world. So Nick Fury updates Spider-Man. He's not 100% sure if he wants to get involved in it because he's, like you say, Peter's focused on trying to do his thing with MJ. So Mysterio's kind of playing like a kind of a father figure role. I know I forgot to mention too, but Peter also gets sent these glasses that Tony Stark left behind that kind of gives him access to all this high-tech satellite drone utility that he left behind because he's looking for someone to take over the mantle of the new, Avengers leader, kind of like the new superhero that's going to change the world, and Spider-Man doesn't feel like he's ready for it. So like I said, Mysterio, he's his name is Beck, and he is, like I said, kind of a little bit coaching Peter on how to like gauge the situation. This is what I'll preference before like the big twist happens. So if you're not aware, Mysterio in the books is originally a villain. He uses illusions and stuff to kind of trick people into doing things. So yeah, Peter's got these glasses now. And he's back on the trip. Another attack happens. He has to step in to help save it. Mysterio's there too. He has a meetup with Mysterio again, and he's telling him like, do you really want to do this? Are you sure this is your calling? Because you have a choice. And Peter's on edge. He's not too sure how to really go about it. He doesn't really want to do it, or he's like he feels like there's a responsibility to do it, but he really just wants to enjoy his trip. And there was a note with the glasses that Stark gave him before he died, and he said, I know something along the lines of, I know you'll know what to do with these or make the right choice. And he interprets that as like, at first Peter thinks, okay, he wants me to be the next guy up. He decides that maybe he's looking for him to pick the right person to take the mantle next. And he sees that, like I said, because Mysterio's been putting in that work to kind of, like I said, get these monsters under control, and he's seems to have like the charisma and the leadership necessary to do it. He gives the glasses over to him. Now, granted, these glasses offer you a lot of power, but he's like, I think you're the guy who's next up to do it. This is when the twist comes in, because this is when we find out that Mysterio basically isn't actually a hero. All that dimension stuff was made up, and it happened at a bar when it was revealed. So Peter gave him the glasses. He left. All the illusions around him basically shattered, and we see that Beck or Mysterio was actually trying to fool Peter into getting glasses the whole time, because Beck was actually an employee of Stark at the time. He felt like Stark didn't appreciate his hologram technology. Him and a bunch of other employees basically made a scheme to trick the world into thinking that this new hero Mysterio was the guy that they can trust, and and the whole plan now is, now that they have this power and technology, they're gonna use the power of illusions, to just trick everyone into thinking that Spider-Man's not like a villain. He's the new hero that can save the world, and essentially just get all he wants from it. And it's really interesting because I don't think most people would know who Mysterio is. The only reason I know who he is because the old Spider-Man 2 game actually had him as a villain, and his whole stick was like, oh, he's a master of illusions. That's how he fights. And to be honest, when the movie first started, I recognized Mysterio, and I was like, I know he's the illusion guy, but I legitimately thought they had kind of retconned his entire character to make him like this interdimensional being or something, and he was going to be a hero. Like I said, I had no idea that this twist was coming. I don't know if I'm stupid, but that genuinely surprised me, because I was like, they seem so committed to this new thing. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. I really like what they did with this character. And at the end of the day, like I say, he's just a guy with a lot of with this like illusion technology. So when we get later on to talking about the characters and how the fights were going in the story, I was very impressed by how they pretty much made him a real threat. But back to kind of how it was. So we found out now he's a villain. Peter basically, after he gives away the glasses, he's like, okay, now I can kind of do my thing with MJ. He invites her out to a bridge where she kind of reveals that she had already figured out he was Spider-Man. And then while that whole thing's happening, Mary Jane, or I mean Michelle, she finds a piece of basically technology that was left behind in one of the fake attacks, that reveals that it was a hologram, and that who's ever behind this, it isn't really like any elemental monsters or anything. Someone's actually pulling the strings. Long story short, it all kind of goes back to Beck. Spider-Man goes to let in Fury in on what's going on, and he eventually confronts Mysterio. They fight it out. This is the first time they actually fight, and we see how actually Mysterio uses his hologram technology to fight Peter, and it's pretty interesting. Like, he had him, if he trapped him basically in a whole hologram world where he's messing with his senses, and he can't Spider-Man can't lay a hit on him. And eventually, he ends up defeating him by kind of tricking Peter into revealing information about his friends, and then he gets hit by a train. So Spider-Man gets knocked out. Now Beck's trying to kill all of Peter's friends because they kind of know his secret, and it's gonna ruin everything. So Spider-Man gets back. He wakes up in the Netherlands, and he calls one of his friends, one of the guys that works for Shield, and he gets back to the place. This is where the climax happens. The Mysterio setting up the entire hologram thing in the middle of the city, and he's kind of using Mysterio as a way to trick people into thinking that he saved the day. And Spider-Man comes back into the fray. They enter the whole like I say, climax of the movie. He finds a way to get into the hologram, destroy the robots that are generating it, and then he has a one-on-one with him at the bridge. And he ends up defeating him. The big secret to how to get around his holograms was really focusing on his spider sense to get, like I said, around all this hidden attacks. So he gets in, he defeats him. And Mary Jane, I keep saying Mary Jane, I'm going to say MJ, but you know what I mean. We all know she's the new Mary Jane. So MJ and Peter finally have their moment, and it's pretty much the end of the movie. We get a post-credit scene at the end where we see that Mysterio, before he was defeated, actually filmed a quick video where he revealed Peter's identity to the world, and that's probably going to be a big setup for the next movie. And then we get like a post-credit scene where we found out that Nick Fury was actually one of those aliens from Captain Marvel in disguise, and Nick Fury's like running a SHIELD program, I think, in space. But that's something, but it didn't really pertain to the movie. But yeah, that's basically the story of it. And like I said, I really liked it, just because I loved how they did his character. Based off like old movies and cartoons I used to have of the Spider-Man series, I genuinely, like, I didn't know who the villain was going to be. I remember in the trailers it was Mysterio, but I didn't have any idea how they were going to like make his character believable, because his whole kind of character is kind of based off it's very cartoony. So it's like trying to make it grounded to where you can believe like, oh, this regular guy can just generate lots of illusions with no real powers. But the fact that he's related to Stark and it has something to do with hologram technology, it does make sense considering how the world's constructed. So I really like that. Second, the characters in it. Every character felt like they had a purpose. His best friend had his own little thing where he's like dating this girl now that he just met for like a second on a plane, and they break up like right after the trip. And they have their little dialogue. It's endearing, it's cute. In the old movies, like the first trilogy, a lot of times when there's a love interest, they never really make that character interesting. Usually it's like, the female character is just the female character. She doesn't really have a real personality. Whereas, like I said, the new MJ, she's funny when she's actually on the screen. She's like a very cynical character. Like, she's like I said, they're all like in high school. So she has a very cynical personality, and it's relevant to how she actually talks to, and actually her relation to other characters. You can actually see her personality shine through in that. Peter Parker, he's an awkward kid. He's actually an awkward high schooler, aside from being a hero. So everyone has their own personality flaws. Everyone has their own kind of things, strengths and weaknesses, and like I said, you can kind of feel that in the movie. So every character is really interesting. Beck as a character is like I said, he's not evil for the sake of evil. He has like his whole character is built on the idea that he felt like he was underappreciated as a worker for Stark, and that's why and that his technology wasn't utilized, being utilized correctly. So that's why he did what he did, to where he's like, I can be better than what Stark was, because I feel like he undercut me, he didn't appreciate me, and he didn't appreciate what I was capable of, and he was able to build a crew to kind of support him, which were the other employees of Stark's organization. So that puts another layer to like Stark's whole relationship within his company too, which just serves to make the world seem more expansive and more interesting. Beck, he honestly was relatable too, because you can kind of see, like, even though he had played the whole empathy part to trick Peter into getting the glasses, when it first came to it, like, he didn't really want to have to hurt Spider-Man. He felt like he had to because he was getting in his way, but it wasn't like like the stereotypical evil, like, oh, I'm gonna take down the hero just for the sake of like not having any heroes. Like he genuinely didn't want to, but like I said, he was a guy bent on getting his way, so that's why he did what he had to do. And I always like when a character is like more fleshed out, so it kind of blurs the line between like bad and evil. It's more of just people with personal goals. So like I said, all the characters felt interesting. The story was really good. It was original. I like how they utilized how the Marvel's universe has been kind of set up so far, to where the initial story of like the whole he's from a different dimension, because right now so many unbelievable things have happened in the series that actually seems like a plausible thing. Like, oh yeah, he's just another guy from another world, and there's these beasts that came over. Like you could believe that, and even he laughed about it when the big reveal came. Like, apparently that's something people can just believe now. So like I said, even knowing the series, I was surprised by the twist. But like I said, that could be just because I'm stupid. I have no idea. But that being said, I really enjoyed the movie. Recommend seeing it for anyone who wants to. I feel like I kind of covered everything in terms of why I really liked it. Movie, story, characters, everything that happened with the plot, the twist, how it was advertised. So, yeah, with that being said, I could give it like a score, 10 out of 10 or whatever. I mean, I can't find any flaws. The only thing I probably would say that was weird, or I wouldn't even say weird, but it seemed like, they could have done maybe a little better, was after the big reveal that Mysterio was the bad guy all along in the little bar area. They did a very like quick exposition to kind of catch everyone up to like who he was and what his plan was and motivations. And, it was set with him like giving this, victory speech. Like, I like to thank you who basically made up this story for me. I like to thank you for working on, the hologram robots. I like to thank you for letting me know about the glasses. And, like I said, it was one of those things to kind of get the exposition to the story out. But it definitely felt like, it felt a little forced. I feel like I always appreciate a movie that kind of slowly drops the exposition drops like how this stuff all came about throughout the story, rather than one big exposition, because then it's kind of just used to fill in everything, because you're on a time, you're basically time restricted. But I see why they did it. I just felt like maybe with a little bit more thought it could have been done a little bit better. But yeah, that's the only nitpick I really had about it. Aside from that, that basically is going to conclude this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit long-winded, but like I said, really liked the movie, and definitely recommend you checking it out if you haven't already. If you like the video, leave me kind of give me a like, leave me any comments, why you may have liked the movie, or you disagree with anything I've said. That being stated, I'm going to go ahead and see you guys later. All right? Peace.